How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to my channel. So tonight I want to talk about my top 10 favorite bass players. I've done videos before where I've talked about my 10 favorite drummers and 10 favorite guitar players, but as far as bass, I've been playing bass since I was like 15, so it's something I know quite a bit about, but I'm not a pro or anything. So my list is probably not going to match everybody else's list. Of course, I ask if you can provide your list in the comments. Let me know what you like. It's like I said, it's just my opinion. And before I give my number one, I'm going to give like 5 honorable mentions. But starting this off, one bass player that I've actually really liked for a long time. He's like 70 years old now. It's Billy Sheehan. This is he was in like Talus at one time, and he's David Lee Roth band, and he was in Mr. Big at one time, and also in the Winery Dogs now, which is like a super group with Mike Portnoy and Richie Kotzen. He's got this interesting style. It reminds me a lot of like John Entwistle, where he has a kind of this like these effects pedals that kind of make his bass almost sound like a guitar in some ways. He kind of it has different ranges. Sometimes he sounds like traditional bass, but he's often freestyling. Being in a trio, he can kind of do some freestyle stuff. And Richie Kotzen's a pretty good guitar player that can sing and play, and Mike Portnoy is obviously an expert drummer, so they can all kind of do their thing there. So I've got him at number 10. At number 9, I've got Chris Squire from Yes. I'm a huge fan of Yes. Chris Squire has passed away now, but I really like like their album Fragile back in the '70s. The '70s is definitely I think their best period, where they were the most like prog rock at that time. But Fragile is a great album. Close to the Edge, but obviously on Fragile, if you like the classic song Roundabout, he's doing that kind of that bass lead kind of in one section of the song, and it's really great. But so I got him at number 9. At number 8, I have John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. At Dazed and Confused, that bass line he has there, and he's always kind of the quiet one in Led Zeppelin. He also played like some of the organ in the band and keyboards. But definitely John Paul Jones is that like the quiet guy out of the 4 people in the band, but he's one of the most important. It's kind of the glue that holds the band together, really. So John Paul Jones, I got him number 8. Number 7, I have Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. Obviously, those first 6 Black Sabbath albums are phenomenal. Some of my favorite albums out there. That's definitely one of the heaviest band until Dio got back in the band, in Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, and that's kind of when they got heavy again. But those first 6 albums are the ones that I think are classic metal albums. So I got him at number 7. Number 6, I have Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. Loved Iron Maiden in the '80s for sure. I've kind of just in the last couple of years here, I've kind of gotten to know like the '90s and beyond of Iron Maiden, but he's got that kind of galloping, kind of chug kind of sound that rattled to his bass sound. But especially in the '80s, he sounded like more like that. I think he kind of changed his style a little bit later, but in the '80s, definitely had that kind of clean kind of sound to his bass that he was kind of known for. They call it like triplets, kind of plays that style. But yeah, definitely number 6, I've got Steve Harris. At number 5, I have John Entwistle from the Who. He's definitely the big influence on that bass player that started off like as basically a guitar player and used like effects pedals to make it sound more like it didn't sound like traditional bass all the time, but he's kind of playing like lead in some ways, playing like guitar on bass. Just different effects pedals and the way his amps were set up. You've got Pete Townsend was playing guitar on one side of the stage, and you got John Entwistle on the other side, and Keith Moon in the back just doing crazy stuff. And they're all kind of just doing their own thing. They're kind of freestyling in a lot of ways when they're playing. But yeah, that's definitely a John Entwistle. At number 4, this one might surprise people, but I've got Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think he, back in the '80s and early '90s, he was kind of the slap bass kind of guy, and then his style really evolved over time after that. his playing like in the last like even like the last two albums have kind of changed a little bit. Yeah, now that John Frusciante's back in the band, they did like two albums now with John, and the second to last album, they've got this song called Aquatic Mouth Dance that I think a lot of people probably won't like, but I think if you're a bass player, you'll definitely like it. You should check that out on YouTube. It has kind of like a jazz sound to it. He has like trumpets in it and that kind of thing, horns, you know. But I think if you just focus in on just the bass itself, you can hear Flea's style there. That's where he's definitely changed and matured as a bass player. So check that out if you like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like I said, it's an Aquatic Mouth Dance is a song. So number three, I've got the legend Paul McCartney. You know, Sir Paul McCartney just turned 80 earlier this year, and you know, back in June he just turned 80. You know, but Paul McCartney, like on Taxman, he's got that bass line in that song, and just over that period of time, and then he started Wings after the Beatles broke up. You know, just a solid bass player. You know, like he's not like the heavy bass player compared to some of these other guys on my list, but I think Paul McCartney deserves a lot of credit, and I love the Beatles. So, at number two, this one might surprise people too. I've got David Ellefson from Megadeth, formerly of Megadeth. Now I guess he's left the band twice now, or been fired twice. But definitely he's got that 5-string bass. He plays with a pick. His song Peace Sells. He's got that cool intro to that song. It's really complex. It's something I can never learn how to play. I've watched him play it before, even on like YouTube. And it's like I'm not sure if I could ever learn how to play that. He plays it so fast, and he's on so many strings on it there with, you know. And I've never played a 5-string bass before. So let me know in the comments if you've ever played a 5-string bass, and then can you play the Peace Sells intro? I'd be really impressed to see anybody do that on YouTube. That's other than David Ellefson, you know, anybody that can copy that style. But so now I'm going to give my 5 honorable mentions. Some of these are pretty common. A couple, the last two are less common, but the first one is Roger Waters, you know, from Pink Floyd. Obviously, the Money, the bass line on Money, great bass line. He did some really cool stuff back in the 70s and until till he broke the band up and with the final cut. But I've always admired his playing. Also, at number two, as far as honorable mentions, I've got John Deacon from Queen. You know, that another one bites the dust. You know, they got that bass line. I thought he was a lot better in the 70s, you know, when Queen was a little bit heavier and less commercial in the 70s, or at least in the early 70s, early to mid 70s. But John Deacon. The third honorable mention is Justin Chancellor from Tool. Big fan of Tool. He's only played on like 4 albums with them. The original bass player was Paul D'Amour, and then Justin took over, and they've only released 4 albums, and since like the late '90s. They don't release a lot of albums, so But I've always liked his style. It's kind of an alternative kind of metal, prog metal. It's a little bit different. It's not traditional bass, but I've always liked his style. I've also really like Cliff Burton from Metallica. Obviously, he died when he was like 24 in a bus accident, and only played on 3 albums with Metallica. But I've always loved that, like the "For Whom the Bell Tolls" intro. He's got that effects pedal that's definitely a different kind of style. Metallica had James Hetfield plays the rhythm in the band, so I kind of left Cliff Burton playing kind of a freestyle kind of thing. And I remember when the guys Metallica said when they first heard Cliff Burton play, they said he sounded. They thought they were hearing like a guitar player at the time, because he was playing just like John Entwistle and just playing that different style. It wasn't traditional bass, but that he taught the guys in the band music theory. He was definitely the most talented of the band, I think, and the other guys in the band really learned a lot from him. It was a tragic loss when he died so young. But Cliff Burton, got to mention him. And then the last honorable mention here, this is one that I don't think this player is really that great as far as a technical player. A lot of people wouldn't take him seriously as a bass player, but I think that this guy deserves credit for just being a big influence on kids. And I'm talking about Gene Simmons from Kiss. You know, not like I said, not a great bass player, but just somebody that his style was, and just the look of the band just made a lot of kids want to play bass. So I think that he deserves credit for that, just for inspiring kids to want to be bass players. So that's why I had to mention him. I've been a huge Kiss fan for most of my life, so I still had to mention Gene Simmons. But as far as number one on my list, I've got Geddy Lee from Rush. I'm a huge Rush fan. Geddy Lee's a genius player. He's really technical. Obviously he sings in the band. He plays keyboard sometimes, plays bass. A lot of times later on, when he had this set up where he had like the keyboard pedal set up on the floor, where you can it's like maybe like six or seven, like 6 to 14 pedals set up to where he can play synthesizer with his feet on the floor and play bass and sing at the same time. So that's really pretty complex. Most players can't do that and keep it all together and be able to sing at the same time. So definitely Geddy Lee. I've got him at number one. Please leave in the comments. Let me know who your 10 favorite bass players are, or give me top 5, or that kind of thing. Let me know what you like. Like I said, this is just my opinion. It's not really a definitive list of bass players, but honestly, I'm obviously leaving out some of the great session players like Carol Kaye and the jazz and blues players, all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about rock players. Please put a thumbs up on this video if you like my content, and please consider subscribing. And have a great one. Thank you. Bye.